Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Peace be upon you all. My story isn't about choosing a career, it's about answering a call that wouldn't let me hide. Teaching found me once, and I've been finding it ever since. An Arab poet says, الأم مدرسة إذا أعددتها أعددت شعبا طيب الأعراق. Mothers are great schools. They're prepared to create generations of noble roots. In our Arab culture and in Islam, mothers are the most excellent teachers. And I would have to confirm that my first and forever teacher is my mother. My mother taught me how to be a human, how to carry resilience without hardness, how to offer compassion without fear, how to love the world even when the world is not gentle. Before I learned English tenses, I learned her lessons: patience, mercy, and dignity of trying again. I was born into a poor family, a child who loved books, but we didn't have money to pay for them because we could barely afford food. In our small town without a library, stories lived only in my imaginations. One day, I was with my father when I saw a man selling books, and my eyes caught a book that looked like a tale. Sorry. I asked my father, he spoke to the seller, then looked to his pocket and returned. "I'll buy you a Turkish delight," he said. He doesn't sell those books. I knew the truth. He was softened. From that sweetness, my hunger for reading did not fade. My education began to grow. I was 11 years old when war moved us, the first Gulf War, to a refugee camp in Saudi desert. The desert teaches you a different clock. Days are long, and hope must be longer. In that place of waiting, I began to teach myself English. Not for grades, not for glory, but for a purpose. I wanted to work with the United Nations office to help my family out of the camp. As I learned, I noticed a second need. People were being resettled in countries that we had barely heard of: Finland, Iceland, names that sounded like clouds on a far map. They were leaving with courage, but without a language. So a call rose in me. A year later, I found a tent. I opened it to the public, and I called it a class. And I said, if you're leaving the camp soon, let's learn what we can. We started with the small necessary words: refugee, freedom, dignity, documents, passport. Wait, we didn't have a passport. We were refugees, and we were labeled that way. In that tent, I taught them grammar. I felt in my bones before anyone named it for me. A kind of universal rhythm I later learned to call structure. I borrowed a notebook and an ink pen from the United Nations office, and I wrote my own book with my own hands, and I called it Step by Step. I drew little trees and branches like I draw today in my linguistics class. Was I introduced to the Axe bar theory? No, but I was introduced to the need. And the need is the best curriculum. I wrote the simple tenses in that book: present, past, and future. Last week, I called my friend who attended these classes, and he lives in Detroit today. I asked him what he remembered. Tenses, he laughed. You call them normal tenses that we call simple tenses today. So I had invented my own names. my own structure, language built from necessity and hope and determination. Years passed. Not long ago, a man found me on Facebook and messaged me from Melbourne, Australia. He wrote, "I was in your 10th classes. The phrases I learned helped me get through the airport. I still remember phrases you taught me, like, I'm legal. I'm legal, I'm here as a refugee," phrases that saved me, so thank you. I read it, and I felt the desert wind again. Teaching had already moved inside me. It was not a job. It was a way of standing in the world. When the time came for us to leave the camp, the Saudi authorities did not let us take our belongings. And they would not let me take my book, step by step. Step by step, what was left behind, as if a small proof that learning had happened where it wasn't supposed to. I grieved that book, and I still do. Yet, the title stayed with me. Like a lantern I could carry, step by step, the only honest way across the distance. I came to the United States as a high schooler. Some teachers welcomed me, some didn't. In some rooms, I was a question. In others, I was the answer waiting for words. I learned quickly that teachers make the climate. The ones who smiled before they threatened, who asked about my strength before testing my deficits, those teachers built a bridge for me to cross. At 16, English mainly lived in my mouth alone. I was the only family interpreter. I still am. The phone call maker, the office visitor, and the reader for immigration documents. I tutored my nieces and my nephews, and I tutored myself. Then I knew teaching grew deeper within me. I was no longer something I did. It was something I was becoming. In college, I went to Costa Rica to strengthen the Spanish I'd first learned from my classmates in San Diego. There, I volunteered at an orphanage house, and I taught English. In that warm house, with its daily rhythms, something settled in me. My family hoped I would become a doctor like any other immigrant families. I understood the honor of that path, but in the classroom, I felt different pulse, a cleaner breath. I told them, I am a teacher. I cannot be other than this. I feel most alive when I'm making a room where someone else can become more alive. I became an ESL teacher. I wanted to be a voice that says, welcome, when the system says, wait. I wanted to be loud for students whose voices were powerful but forced into whispers. Over time, the classroom gave me thousands of reasons to stay. One of these reasons, the middle schooler from El Salvador, Andres. He was quiet, always smiling, shy in English and open in Spanish. Some teachers wrote him off, lazy, disengaged. He spoke to me because I was the only one who spoke Spanish, and he said, Profe, yo no tengo familia aquí. My parents were captured at the border and detained. I ran. And now I live with adults I barely know. So I ask, how do we expect homework from a child who does not have a home? And how do we assign chapters to someone who is trying to survive a chapter of his life? In that moment, my vocation stopped being a lovely word and became a necessary act. Years later, I moved from teaching students to teaching teachers. Augsburg University became my home. Now I stand with future educators, and we practice what my mother taught me, what the desert taught me, and what Andres taught me. See the students before you see the scores. Raise the bar, then you build the ladders. Let language be the bridge and not a wall. In Arabic, we say, al-ilmu nur, knowledge is light. But light doesn't scald the dark. It enters and makes its way. That is what teaching is to me. Not a spotlight to judge, but a lamp to guide. Sometimes I think of my handwritten book that Saudi officers wouldn't let me carry. I could not save those pages, but perhaps those pages saved me. Step by step, it has followed me into every classroom, every syllabus I write, and every conference I have with my students who cannot speak up. When I teach future teachers, I hand them that invisible book. Step by step, we learn our students' stories. Step by step, we design lessons that honor their languages. Step by step, we turn care into practice and practice into policy. Step by step, we refuse to make deficits the headline and call resilience by its right name, wealth. If you ask me how I became a teacher, I will answer like this. A mother raised a school inside me. A camp gave me a classroom without walls. A country gave me teachers who shaped my courage. Students like Andres gave me reasons that's stronger than excuse. And God gave me grace to keep walking, step by step, from campus to classroom to campus, from camp to classroom to campus. So to my students, past and future, I say, your languages are welcome here. Your stories are not side notes. There are source texts. To my fellow teachers, I say, we don't have to be perfect to be present. We do not fix every system, but we can refuse to reproduce harm. And to my mother, I say, thank you for the first school. May we keep the light gentle and the standards high. May we be ladders where others expect walls. And may the next 12-year-old in a tent, drawn dreams on sand, find the world. That's it. Come in. We saved you a desk, and that's what Augsburg is doing. Thank you.